So, hi everyone. I'm here to tell you about how Babyshop added its modern data stack. And this is a talk about how you can have a great impact on a business that is like fully functional and quite big as Babyshop was with very limited resources. And I'm using this example to illustrate how that was done. So I will give a quick introduction to myself and why I was part of this basically. I will go through Babyshop as a company, their background, how come they ended up in the situation they were 1 year ago when I started. And we will give some details on how we're using Fivetran in our data stack, how that has helped us, also a wee bit about Snowflake. And then the most interesting part is probably what has changed at Babyshop, how people talk differently, how they act differently, and how they think differently. Both like in a bigger perspective, but also some details about that. And we will end with some examples of what they're actually doing today, concrete day-to-day things that they could not do before, that we have helped them with. But let's start with me. So I'm a developer. This is the first project where I'm actually working with data warehouses. I have worked with e-commerce companies. I currently work at a consultancy firm called Nevermind Media, which is a small Stockholm-based company. I have worked with a couple of different e-commerce companies, big and small ones, and a few like startup kind of tech companies, working a lot with big data and artificial intelligence. I also did my first few years in public sector at the police and PostNord, which is a very different experience from working with a small tech company, but it's a good contrast to see. Now I like to say that I use code and technology and automation to transform businesses. And with this I mean that I do not work with the actual core of a company. I try to find areas of this company where they have possibilities to extend their core, so to speak. I find areas where they are lacking, but where I think that there is great possibilities. And I live by the Pareto principle, which means get 80% of the value out of 20% of the time. So that's me. And this is Babyshop. They are one of the largest multi-channel children's clothing and products retailers in Europe. They stock 300 brands. They have an extraordinary shopping experience with their different websites. They have a fully automated warehouse down in Jönköping that's enormous. It has like robots flying on top, picking boxes, sending it out to the couriers. And they ship around 100,000 packages a month. So this is the core of Babyshop. This is what they're really good at. This is the reason why they've grown to sell children's clothes for 1 billion crowns a year. This is why. This is not what I'm going to work with, because this is the core. This is different. But from their trip, how Babyshop came to be what they are today. So they started off in 2006, founded by Linn and Marcus Tagesson. Since they came up with the name Babyshop, and they thought like we cannot not create a company based on this. So the name came first, and then they started Babyshop. It has grown partly organically, but also from having several acquisitions of similar companies, like Alex and Alexa, Norwegian Babyshop, and Lekmer. And this is the reason, because these companies by themselves were not big enough to take the step into starting their own tech department and doing their own analytics and doing all of these things that they would want to do. So once they merged, they had the capabilities of each of the different smaller companies, but combined. So 1 year ago when I started with my colleague Felix, there was one person in the tech team, and that was the tech manager. And basically what he did was keeping track of all their vendors. So there was a very, very lean tech department, to say the least. Okay, that's history. Let's move into the project and what we did. So this is the main part of the talk. How did we get there? How did we move from this very, very lean, where not having actually any data capabilities at all, to where we are today? So we started with this mission. We had 3 main goals. We're going to help the BI team evolve their existing operational data storage solution. We were going to help them automate their businesses, because they had like buyers and they had marketing people that were doing a lot of manual steps to do their work basically. They did not have the tools or the support that they needed. And we're going to help them evaluate and integrate new systems like financial system, PIM system, stuff like that. So to me, this is perfect. Here I see a business that is working. It's pretty big. They have resources, and they have gaps in areas that are so crucial to an e-commerce business that I don't think you can live without it. So I see a possibility to have great impact. Me and Felix decided to take on this project. First few weeks, we started looking into this ODS solution, which is a Java-based, home-built kind of application that queried databases, transformed data, put it in another database. It was managed 4 hours a week by a consultant, and the only business value they got out from this at the point when we started was that they had pushes to Slack every hour that told the management how many packages they sold the last hour. That was basically it. So we created a few reports based on this that was requested to us from like the financial team and the BI team and other people, and it was horrible. Like the development cycles were extremely slow. Creating all these pumps was very inefficient. We had to write a lot of custom code. Deployment flow didn't work properly because there was always some processes running. You could never pause the application, take it down, and do redeploys. And there were no frameworks and no out-of-the-box capabilities to make this easier. So we were starting to discuss if this was actually the way to go for Babyshop. Is this what they actually need? But the benefits from this system was, of course, that we had really good possibilities to create really custom reports that were really fast to query and that could contain live data, which is, of course, nice. This is something you might want. But when talking to the BI teams and to the other people around Babyshop, this is not what they saw in the ODS solution. They wanted data. They wanted to be able to dig into this data and find new opportunities. They did not know what reports they were going to create. They could not define to us that we want to look at this. They just said, I want to experiment with information that we have in this company and see what I can find. So I thought about this this woman called Nancy Duerte that talks, she gives TED Talks, and she has one of them when she talks about ideas and how ideas are the most valuable thing, but the most valuable asset that we have, unless if it's kept within you, because then it's entirely useless. And this was the situation at Babyshop. We had so many ideas, but we couldn't do anything with them because with the situation where we were at, the ideas were too difficult to test for us to figure out if they had actual value. So all the ideas were kind of thrown away. So we discussed this within the team, within other teams, and also with the tech manager, then it was Wilhelm. And we came up with this new the guiding star. He called it his war cry, which is make data available. So from this point, we decided that every decision we're going to take and everything we're going to do was to ensure that we made more data available. And this is good. Now we stepped away from something that sounds a bit, it doesn't sound super fun to improve an existing ODS solution. This sounds like more fun. Here we have possibilities to be creative. We have possibilities to make a difference. But of course, we have to detail this a bit more. So we thought what we need to do to actually get some productivity into the BI team in Babyshop and to give them what they need. And this is easy. It's basically 3 steps. We need to load data, we need to store data, and we need to give them the possibility to look at data. And they're using Power BI, so the 3rd box is already done. Like we only have to fill in 2 boxes to achieve this huge goal that we have. So let's get started with this. We do the process in the way the data comes. So we start with the data loading. And from the requirements we had, I'm working on half time on this. I'm doing other things, and Felix is doing entirely other things. So there's a half person working on this, and that's going to be that way. They want the lean tech department at Babyshop. They want to be able to run this on very few people. So the requirements we set up for the data loading are all focused around making this easy to handle and making this fast and agile. So we set up a couple of requirements, and we talk about simplicity, reliability. We need some out-of-the-box connectors in order not to have to write them all ourselves. we need to be able to write custom data sources in the situations where we're using very small Swedish niche vendors, and we do that a lot. We need a price model that doesn't break when we add more connectors, more data, whatever we want to do. And we need the support to be awesome, because we don't want to be banging our heads against the walls when stuff don't work. So this is easy. I mean, there's no more details than this in the investigation that we went through. And we're using this 5-step process to check on these requirements. And we start with scanning the market for vendors, which in reality is me Googling around for 1 day maybe. I threw away the vendors I didn't like, and I saved the ones that I liked. I ended up with a list of a few. We go through them, compare them based on every requirements. We did proof of concept. We set them up towards some of our mostly used connectors, and we rank them best to worst. Best get 1 point, second one gets 2, and so on, and the least amount of points win. So we said, let's try this. Let's see if we have a winner. If so, take that winner, move on. If not, we can do another iteration. We can go through it more in detail. But since speed is super important for us, we have a very tight deadline to meet. We're just going to try it and see if we can do this without going deeper into the evaluation. And it worked well. This is a bit... So Fivetran actually won 4 out of the 6 categories here for us with the requirements we had. So it was like there's no competition. We compared also with Matillion, Illuma, and Stitch. There's no real competition here. We don't have to go in through the details. So we can just say that we're going to pick Fivetran, we're going to move on to the next step. And the next thing is the data warehouse. We have very similar requirements for this. We talk about simplicity, reliability, cost control, scalability, and good support. Just make this easy and fast for us, and we're going to be happy. So we did a similar comparison, and in this scenario, Snowflake is the winner. 4 out of 5 is the best option for us. So we pick Snowflake. And then from starting this project to having filled all the boxes in this very simple diagram, we have a process of maybe 3 to 4 weeks, where 2 of them is arguing about price, where I'm not actually involved, or negotiating maybe. So this is where we end up. And at this point, a couple of weeks after we decide to do this, we already have most of this set up. Like the Fivetran connectors, the ones that we could access easily, they are already set up. We have data in Snowflake. We're starting to write views already during the proof of concept and during the trial of this. But we have to continue and add some more of them. And today, I think we are about somewhere between 50 and 60 connectors running through Snowflake. And we've spent maximum 2 weeks of development time to get them in there, which is, I mean, that's amazing. The really easy ones are the ones that are pre-built, and that we talk about Facebook and Instagram and all these Google Ads, Google Analytics, these kind of connectors. You just click on them, configure it, and you're done. And this is also something that can be done by the BI team afterwards. They can add their own Google Analytics reports into Snowflake and create views on them super easily. The more tricky ones are the ones where we did not have the pre-built connectors, but we had to actually talk to a database. And we preferred the database connector from building API integrations, since it's faster and since we make sure we get all the data. The biggest issue here was convincing our vendors to give us access to their database, because they feel they're being left out from this project. But that's a political issue, that's not a technical issue. So we have the e-commerce system and the CRM system and some other ones we connect directly to their database, to the master database, and we had no issues with that at all. Then there are the really niche ones where, some of the vendors we could not get a database access. We could not. There were no connectors for them. We had to build Lambda integrations that's supported by Fivetran. Also a very simple thing to do. It takes maybe one or 2 days to build one of these integrations to fetch the data that you need from a specific integration. You get a lot of help with scheduling and pagination and stuff like that from Fivetran. And for that, now I think we covered 90% of our needs at this point. But there are some more that, like big Couriers, for example, they don't have API integrations. They don't give us database access, and they have no good way to export data. The most common way is that they send Excel files over email, which is not super convenient, but we manage that as well. And then we get some events through webhooks. So this is basically all the components we need to use to get this 60 something source data into our system. Other than that, we're also using transformations in Fivetran to take snapshots of data. For example, we have pricing that changes every day, and there's no history in the e-commerce system, so we store it day by day using transformations in Fivetran. We use the uploads to add mappings between different systems. Like country codes are different in all our different systems, and we join them all the time. So instead of putting this into Power BI or somewhere else, we just add the mappings through Fivetran, and we have them joinable easily in the data warehouse. And we are using the Fivetran API to turn off synchronization during the night to save Snowflake credits, which is also quite nice. We're only working from Stockholm, so we don't need to have fresh data in the evenings or in the nights. These are two other services that we needed to use, or we wanted to use to make this even easier and to give us bigger possibility to be creative with data loading above all. So Airtable is Google Sheets, but with an API. So you can actually do API requests to Airtable, and you can get the data out of there, attachments and whatever information you need. So we have used that for basically building a data UI on top of Snowflake with the help of Fivetran. So you can do configuration in Airtable, you can use it for mappings and whatever, and we make sure that that data goes into the data warehouse. So our analysts and our buyers, they can change things in Airtable, and they can see the Power BI reports published online or actually adapted to the changes they have done. So it's really powerful without having to write any SQL. Integromat is just a service that can move files between systems and find information between systems. So we use that for things like fetching attachments from Gmail and putting them on SFTP so that we can read information in it. But with these two and the already built-in capabilities of Fivetran, we had a very easy time setting up the data loading. So this is one example where we used Integromat, for example, where as I said, we get the courier information to Gmail, and that is basically, normally you will get an invoice from the courier saying, okay, this month you send shipments for 1,000 crowns, and you pay that. You have no clue what shipments there are, how the cost is split, or why, or anything like that. To get that information, you have to fetch that from an Excel file that they put on Gmail, basically, or they send them by mail. So we have Integromat listen to these mails, pick out the attachments, send it to a small function that we build that transforms the Excel file to a CSV file, puts it on SFTP, and Fivetran listens to that and reads in the data from there. So this is also like a one day thing to get a lot of information that was impossible to us to use before. It's really cool. And this is what I mentioned about using Airtable as a UI for Snowflake. What we needed to do is we set up the basis, I think it's called, in Airtable, add information there, and we have a small Lambda function connected with Fivetran that reads in this information and puts it into Snowflake. So we write this code once, it takes a couple of hours, and we have created a user interface that is used for Snowflake, for data, but we also use this to control our e-commerce system. We use this Airtable integration to make changes on the ERP system itself when they are lacking support. This is really nice as well. Okay, this doesn't want to. There we go. So what has changed at Babyshop from doing this? I mean, the biggest and most important change that we had is how they talk about data and how they act when taking decisions. It used to be a lot of people that were really good at selling or knowing trends in children's wear and toys and things like that. And they came to the buyers, they came to the tech team or the tech manager or whatever they wanted to do. They came to them with ideas, and they said, like, I have a feeling this is going to kick ass. And sometimes it did, sometimes it didn't, and that's fine. They still do that, but they always bring up paper data when they do that now. They always have information supporting this, and that's good. I mean, bringing information to support your ideas is of course good. It makes it easier to filter out the ones that are not going to work earlier. But the more important thing is that the people that did not come with ideas before, now they don't have to feel insecure about their ideas, because they can support them before. So we actually get more ideas now. It's not that the people with bad ideas filter them out, but it's the people that think they have that bad ideas can now realize that their ideas are good, and they bring it to their managers, and they bring it to the tech team, and they bring it to the marketing team, or whatever they want to do. And we have really noticed that people talk about data in a very different way. I mean, this happened we started September last year, and you started seeing this change in November, December, when we came up to Black Week and Christmas and all that. One of our biggest goals was also to enable the BI team through improving the ODS solution. We skipped the ODS solution, but we enabled the BI team through giving them a data warehouse to experiment on. And they found so many opportunities in how we communicate with customers and how we sell and what we do, that we create a growth team was created in the beginning of this year, in February, I think, and there are now 10 people working full time with it, taking action on processes and information that we have done wrong before. The growth team together with, they have a freelancing, or say part-time worker that's 16 years old called Oliver, who has built artificial intelligence recommendation engine that's based on a couple of features that's actually working a lot better than the ones we bought out of the box for lots and lots of money from vendors. And this is things that could not have been done before, like the access we have given to data and the speed we get from Snowflake and the possibility to query this makes it very, very easy to get your business critical aspects into these algorithms and make them more efficient than the ones you can buy. So this is amazing. And with the tools we had, this is also something that was done in a matter of days, maybe a week. And something that's maybe not a big cultural change, but I think that's a good symptom to a big cultural change, is the fact that our CFO now writes his own SQL queries. Sometimes he come asks when it doesn't work, but he figures out stuff like this himself, and he sends them on Slack saying, "Hey, I got this thing. Can you please do something with this?" And that is that's someone that was very far away from this when we started, who did not have any interest at all doing this kind of digging into data. But that matters, because everyone start to realize that if he has the time to do this and he actually does this and finds a value in this, so can I. So a lot more people are interested in the information we have now. So let's say how you can see this in day-to-day work. So this was basically the first thing we did last year. That was one of the targets that we set to say that if we have achieved our goal of making data available. We decided we were going to have dashboards for Black Week or Black Friday. That's somewhere in mid-November, and we are going to show business critical metrics for every department that they can actually act on during this week. And we did. So we had a couple of screens set up around the office, and we put tables with huge bowls of candy in front of them to lure the people in. And they were standing there eating candy, looking at the graphs, and they were like, "Hey, but that's weird. We're not selling those. Why am I running an email campaign with hats? Doesn't work. Throw it away, do something else." And they actually started getting these ideas. They could see how they had certain issues in certain countries. Some of them noticed that, oh, checkout is being slow in Hungary. We might have some issues with our service there. And they actually, from this very simple exercise, we had a lot of good activity going about this week. And that also spread the knowledge to the company that what can be done with very, very easy or very, very few resources and some data analysis. And this one I also mentioned, not as fun, but still important, that there are very strict regulations on how to do e-commerce in Sweden at least, and also in some countries close to Sweden. And this is very difficult to follow unless you have very good control over your data, and you can actually trace back what you have done for a very long time. And Babyshop have about 1.3 million articles that's currently possible to sell, or that's in the database. And there's no historical pricing. There was no historical pricing of any of these. And there are laws saying that if you have something on sale, you can't put it on sale again until 42 days or something like that has passed, and that was impossible to keep up with. There was no way for us to figure out these things. Then you would, because we have hundreds, like we have thousands of articles on sale every day, so it's really hard from the buying department to keep track of this. So we're starting to take daily snapshots of pricing in every region, and also availability in every region, which is like a 100-column wide table with 1.3 million rows every day, which is easy peasy for Snowflake. And we do process this, and we can say warnings if you try to put stuff on sale that you're not allowed to put on sale, or run campaigns that does not work for some reason. And we also use this for maybe the more interesting things, which is analyzing price elasticity to see how changing price actually affect your customers. So we can see that there is not, or we could be able to see if that was a correlation. We could see if there was actually a strict correlation between lowering the price and increasing our revenues or increasing our sales. So that's made a huge difference as well. Tailored marketing, I think, is the most obvious thing when you talk about e-commerce and data and artificial intelligence and things like this. So of course we have also improved how we communicate with customers. We make sure we don't try to sell them things we know they do not want to purchase, and we make sure we don't send them too many emails or the wrong kind of communication. And we can also make sure to keep this communication the same all across, like the site, the email, Facebook, and Google Shopping, and all of these different channels we use for merchandising. We can do it the same. This one is not as obvious, I think. So if we look back at the history for Babyshop, they had no tech department themselves. So if they wanted to add something, like say they want to add a search engine, they had to call the vendor that owned Babyshop's code, because they don't even own it themselves, and ask them to implement this for them, which never worked as expected. It took forever, and the result was usually, not very good. It was usually quite bad, to be fair. And this was a problem, because this meant that there were a lot of projects that failed, which is of course bad, but it also created this feeling at Babyshop that they shouldn't try to do things with data. It didn't work. They could not use technology to improve the business because it never worked. But since we moved all the information that we have into Snowflake, we're building these integrations ourselves right on top of the data warehouse. So we have a lot of systems that are not reliant on speed. We do not need to respond to a visitor to the site directly, but we have time to process and to take care of this. So we have started to implementing these integrating these systems ourselves. And one good example is Aftership. Aftership is a service that tracks parcels that move outside of Sweden, basically, or outside of the country where you are. So if you would send something with PostNord or DHL or wherever, they would just drop your package at the border and go back and never think about it again. And someone else picks it up and they move it to wherever it's going. Aftership keeps track of this and makes sure that we can track it all the way to the destination. So this is of course very important to us, because this here we can see if we're actually doing what we promised to our customers. Are we delivering in 2 days or whatever we have promised, and are we notifying them when something went wrong? So we get control of this. And to implement Aftership, all we had to do was basically once every hour we query for new orders in Snowflake, send them to Aftership, and then we get webhook with events back and put them to Snowflake. So I set this up in less than 1 day myself, and this is something that probably would have taken our e-commerce vendor a month or so to figure out, do all the details, plan it, and get it done. So I mean, the agility or the speed that we have now to introduce new services like that has changed so much. And in this small schema here, we have Aftership. There's a webhook, icon. Aftership's and webhooks, the Fivetran puts it into Snowflake, and then it's the Lambda function after Snowflake, and that is actually representative for us looking into Snowflake to see if there are actions we need to take on logistics data, like your package is broken or something is gone, stuff like this. And we can take this, we can act on it through our CRM system. We can send them an email saying, oh, sorry, we broke your bike. Here's a 10% off the next purchase. So we can use this to get the customers back into like our shopping experience, and making sure this is not a bad experience, but this is a possibility for marketing for us. Yes, I mentioned this one briefly as well. So couriers, I'm not sure that I have heard. What people tell me is that couriers usually overcharge for packages. They all do, and they do it a lot. We can't control this. As I said, we get the invoice once a month, and it says like, here's your bill, have fun. With what I explained before, we can now split this data into parcels. We can say that we paid this much for every single parcel that is ever sent. And we're also currently implementing a scale and what I call it, something to measure the boxes that we send out, so that we can compare these, and we can say like, okay, these don't match. Here we're paying too much, and we can automatically send that to PostNord or whoever saying we want money back because this didn't match. So that new control is very important. Shipping cost is a very big part of the e-commerce costs. So making sure that this is not overpaid is crucial. And we can also use this for other things. So for a company like Babyshop, we have one storage in Jönköping. We ship all over the world. So selling a bed to China is a lot more expensive than selling a bed to Linköping. That matters a lot. And before of course, we know about this. So we say like, okay, big things, put some % extra for shipping it abroad. Now we can actually estimate this cost in a very good detail from looking at previous orders with the information we got from PostNord, and we can do this a lot better, and we can optimize where we should put this pricing to still sell the bed, but without having a huge loss from that, which is also very, very powerful. And we can use this to tailor the communication with this customer who's buying this very big item. So that's actually my last example. And to me, we've been there for 1 year. This, what I explained now, that happened within the first few months. And this was done by basically a bit less than one person, I would say, because we were doing other things as well. So I have done a lot of projects, and I have never had this much impact on a company with this little effort. I have spent years at certain places without doing even 10% of what we did at Babyshop. So to me, this is like the best case we ever had. And I think what's important here is that how they were open to letting us change the scope when we saw that this didn't work. How we can move away from the original task quite a lot to say like, no, let's not do this. Let's do this thing instead. And how they let us, in small step, they let us try this, and we had our small ideas, and so like, give us 1 week to show we can get payback on this. And we always got these extra weeks. And eventually we had built something that is now used by the entire organization. And it's making them scale quite a lot, and it's making them trade a lot more efficiently. But what's also important in this scenario is that you couldn't have done this 15 years ago. There was no way to have this happen with Informatica or whatever else you're going to use, because it's not built to do these things. So I think that it's crucial that we had tools like Snowflake and like Fivetran to be able to do this. And I think this will happen more. Like, I think there will be more smaller e-commerce customer and other customers that will want to take the trip that big customers took 15 years ago. And we can set this up on trials, and we can have this running for basically spending no money at all, and that could not be done before. So I think that's a very, very important takeaway. Yes, that's the most important, I think. And now I'm done. So, thank you.